By ways of introduction, very quickly across the room, Pav, give us a 1 minute on yourself and who you are.
Cheers, Paul. So I'm Pav Dhillon, so I'm partnered with Paul as the CTO here at May Consulting. So my focus is on the technical side of AI implementation, AI strategy, and helping our customers really navigate this sphere of AI within their business. A quick overview about myself. So I've worked in the consulting industry for a number of years now. It's mainly within the financial services. So I've got a good background of regulated environments and customer use cases.
Thanks, Pav. James.
Yeah, morning everybody. So James Sharp, I work here at Climber UK. I'm the managing director. So a bit of background, I started off in IT, I guess into sort of IT management roles. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for many years, and then at 2012 I set up a business to deliver data and analytics solutions. We'd had a lot of success in the pharma industry with that. So we set up an organisation to do that, and now that's what I lead here at Climber UK today. So we have a strapline, create an intelligent business, and it's all about that. It's all about making people make smarter decisions from their data. So I'm coming to today's call very much from a data and analytics perspective for AI.
Great. Thank you, James. Thanks for finding some time. And certainly not least, Massimo.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Massimo Gibilaro. I'm Director of Product and Technology at the Thomson Reuters Foundation, which is the corporate charity no-profit organization for the Thomson Reuters Group. I'm in charge of AI adoption, governance, and strategy within my business, and I've been in digital for about 22 years. Very excited to be here with you all today.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So to kind of kick it off, so May was created really as we just after kind of 20 years of working in the technology space, realized that there's probably a better way to deliver AI projects, and how do you help customers get out of the perpetual loop of proof of concepts and really not being able to drive value. So we've created a framework to help do that, and part of the conversation today is kind of where do you start? Why is it important to have a framework? Ethics, governance, risk is a huge conversation at the moment everywhere. So if I want to kind of kick off the conversation a little bit, so Mass, I'm going to kind of pass to you kind of first. So what's your current view and kind of perspective on AI transformation as you see it at the moment, both externally and perhaps within your own business?
I think there's a lot of ways in which businesses are approaching this. Different ways, starting from pretty much who owns it in the first place, right? So where is this sitting? Is it sitting in anybody's P&L specifically? Is it, kind of on a proof of concept basis? Is it at which stage you are pretty much your AI adoption? And that will tell you also pretty much the business you are in itself, pretty much what it means AI in your organization. Does it mean it for customer service point of view? Does it mean it at procurement level? Are you trying to ingest anything into your own technology stack, for instance, where you're trying out with a couple of, proof of concept and you're scaling up? However, one of the first discussions that we had in Thomson Reuters Foundation was pretty much how do we set up a governance frame in which we basically wanted to say, what are the ethical pillars that we choose to sort of adopt in the first place? What are the guardrails that we want to put together? How do we basically have anything that is pretty much an AI adoption governance strategy? What sort of values we are going to inform any actions that will take place during the work and all that? And how do we basically skin, all of this very complex organizational matter in terms of reducing, augmenting, or transforming buckets for all the different programmatic areas that we have? And so we soon had to sort of come up with something around, say, we need a governance framework that's going to work on that.
Very good. James, your opinion on that as well. So data is kind of where everybody starts. So where do you guys at Climber kind of think about AI transformation and kind of how you come into the cycle?
Yeah, okay. So I think for our organization, obviously, as you say, Paul, we're very much about data, getting access to data, making decisions from data. So I think, when we talk about AI, it's such a big thing, right? It's so many different use cases and capabilities. So if I focus it very much down on our kind of customer, it's very much about doing what we've always done to a degree in making sure that we've got robust data, well-structured data, governed data. But that gets more and more important as we apply AI functionality over that data.
Yep.
So 20 years ago when I started, I guess maybe more than that, if I'm honest, we would be building out dashboards, right?
Yep.
For CEOs, leaders, etc. And people would come to you and say, can we have a dashboard? And say, yeah, what do you want? I'm not sure. I just know I need a dashboard.
Yep.
And it feels very similar now with AI. We need AI because we're told that businesses that don't embrace AI are going to suffer. They're not going to be around because they're not efficient, etc. So where we sit in terms of our guidance for our customers is very trying to keep the foundations very similar. So we're making sure we get access to the data as needed. We're structuring it in a robust ways, well governed, and ensuring that data quality. Because as soon as we start putting those AI models over it, whether that may be machine learning models to predict future outcomes, the accuracy of that data is even more and more important as we go forward.
Yeah.
All of what I mentioned there really is structured data, what we've always done. So what comes out of your ERP systems, your finance systems, your CRM systems, very well structured data that we bring out of those systems and then do something with, create a dashboard, drive insights, drive alerts. But of course, now with AI, we're seeing, well, actually, we can do a lot with unstructured data. And I think an old stat was 80% of a company's data is unstructured. So now we can access Word documents, PDF files, all that kind of stuff. Well, that's not something our sort of organization has ever worried about. How do we guide the quality of that data? Yep. So now we need those guardrails of, well, if you're going to actually use that unstructured data to drive decision making, you really need to understand what version of it. I bet you're going to most organizations and their SharePoints or similar have got loads of different versions of the same documents, outdated versions and that kind of stuff. So it starts bringing the quality of data, not just from what we've done in a traditional perspective with building out data warehouses, make sure it's accurate, make sure that somebody's responsible for the quality and governance and access to that data. But now we've got the same challenge in the unstructured world as well.
Yeah. And then you've got quite a lot of kind of unforeseen risks that come out of that kind of planning really as well. I know, Pav, you're working with a kind of a marketing client at the moment that is looking to introduce something into their organization. Data is one issue, but you've then got some other things that are being introduced to that, and that's where we kind of come to frameworks, I suppose, a little bit of whether you want to call it guardrails or a framework or something. How are you kind of seeing it in some of the chats that we've been having?
Yeah, so again, as James and Mass have touched on, that again, AI, everybody is using it in their organization, or people want to use it. Boards are putting pressures on C-suites to implement it. They're asking for plans. They're asking for what value is actually driving. So again, just touching on the marketing client as well. So their parent company is taking a different view. They're scared of the risks, and because they haven't understood the risks or the governance controls in place currently, they've put a stop to anybody in the business using any sort of AI or Gen AI. And again, if you look at sort of industry reports from McKinsey, around 72% of companies are using some form of Gen AI. So on one hand, you've got the proliferation of AI and Gen AI in businesses, but then you've also got the risks and concerns that aren't being addressed or aren't being understood at the C-suite at the board level. So is that then stifling the innovation within that particular company? So again, this goes back to helping our customers understand those risks, understanding some form of governance and procedures they can put in place and with their employees, so they can use things safely. So again, going back to the work that we're doing with this marketing company, so they want us to come and build some labs and sort of teach their employees on how to use AI safely. So this is something that we've built a small product for them to enable the safety of AI. So we've not got anything traversing the external internet. So anything they do in-house is captured in-house on their systems and servers, so they can be sure that nothing is leaking. But again, it's having those conversations, it's building those reports and building those documentations that you can take to your board to actually give them the understanding and the alignment of how AI can be used in a safe and secure manner.
Yeah, right. And so if we take that then on a little bit further, so you've only got to, read LinkedIn or open your phone, and we're all being peppered with the amazing, life-changing things that AI is going to do for us all, whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT or Gemini 3 that was launched yesterday. This is going to revolutionize the way we work. One of the things that kind of concerns me, and in conversations that I was having as early as yesterday, a lot of folks have leapt into things quite quickly, and what they've kind of perhaps put on the back burner is let's think about the goals and let's really focus in on the why. Like, what is it we're actually trying to achieve? Is it, ROI is spoken about a lot, and Mass, I don't know in your business how you're kind of tackling that question of, well, we want to AI something. How do you think about setting goals and really figuring out what is it we're actually going to do and why?
Well, to me, this is about what were the objectives in the first place. We needed to define this as part of the framework. And for us, again, it was about reduce, augment, and transform, meaning effectively, what are the productivity gains, the real productivity gains, not the sort of vanity ones. And I'll, talk more about what vanity means in this case. What are the real augmentation that we could do in terms of capabilities, enhancements, and stuff for that? But what I guess where you unlock tremendous amount of value is transform. So what are the new workflows and effectively the new sort of business opportunities that you can unlock through a very good, ethical, responsible, and effective adoptions of AI? And again, reduce productivity gains is that you're going to reduce tasks that are very menial in a way and all that, which obviously needs quite a lot of upskilling of the talent that you have, but also fearing less of what pretty much this is and demystify this for the rest of colleagues. The augment part is pretty much the capabilities enhancement, things that we didn't have because it costed too much time or too much money or too many different meetings and all that, which we now can do through some good tooling adoptions in the first place. But the part where we're starting to really experiment through internal POCs is literally new ways of doing products, for instance. And obviously this is where my role is in specific. And it's through the technology understanding that we can repackage content in a way that is in there. Is it something that has an immediate ROI? We're starting to understand what really productivity gains means, because it's not productivity gains if all of a sudden you had huge amount of code created and no QA to sort of have that level of activities. That is no longer productivity gains. It is something that says, yes, we created value, but we're now creating more problems that we were trying to sort of sort.
Yeah.
But where you have a distinct, say, for instance, kind of a clear dotted line on save time of pretty much how much it would have costed you to sort of do certain type of activities and all of that. That is pretty much something that our CFO and CEO really loves to sort of hear, and unlocking that kind of value in itself.
Yeah, James, are you finding that the customers you're dealing with, they're setting the goals, but they're having to kind of reverse a little bit on the deployment because their data isn't ready, or is that kind of where the unstructured ability now comes in, and that you can move forward at pace? You don't have to build a data warehouse, stick click on top of it, or Fabric. You can do it in a little bit more of a liquid fashion, if I was to find a word.
That's a good question. I remember being at a conference, I think it was last year, and they came up on the screen, 2,000, 3,000 people in this big conference came up on the screen, garbage in, garbage out. And I was like, I could have put that on the screen 20 years ago. It's essentially the same thing. But the point, excuse me, the point being that we need to make sure that data is robust, because otherwise you just extrapolate that issue, and using that data further. I think Mass touches on a really important point about being efficient with our time and the return on investment and being productive. We get now meeting notes on all the meetings we do because they're all AI generated. But actually, it takes me longer now to read through some of those notes because they're so good. There's so much detail there, which I may not have done before. So there's probably more quality note taking that's happening, but my time is less efficient arguably, because I'm going back through those notes that I probably didn't need to reread. So there's stuff like that. I think in our world, the thing that I see the biggest shift on, that we're starting to see, where I spoke about a minute ago, we've been building dashboards and trying to articulate data in a way that people can digest it and make decisions from it. That's essentially what we do. Now we're less about building a dashboard that's showing you different charts and some KPI numbers, that, the other, and now having much more natural language conversations with your data. So you're asking it, what is my sales revenue? Which periods have we been most profitable? What products are selling the most? That kind of stuff. Show me comparisons. Of course, behind that, you need really well structured data and a broad set of it, so it can react to those questions. In a dashboard, we can say, right, that chart's always going to be that chart, and I can filter on product and date and a handful of other things. But we're now enabling our end users, and our end users are expecting the ability to interact with a broad set of data and almost ask anything of it, and the system just dynamically almost create that dashboard or a natural language response. Now, I'm dyslexic, so I like a chart with some numbers and some bar charts, and I can see which product performing the best. I don't like so much the natural language response, which is the way that a lot of people are now going, because it's the new opportunity to include that. So I think there's different things there, but in terms of, if I think about our productivity as a business intelligence organization and what our team does, we should be spending less time, and organizations should be spending less time building out analytics, insights, dashboards, that kind of stuff, spending much more time on the quality of the data, the governance of that data, who should be able to access what, make sure it's not open to, like Matt says, internet where it shouldn't be, but we can quiz it and we can get very quick, very dynamic responses from it.
And you can only really do that if you start with some sort of guiding principle within your business as to, here's what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Now that framework or that policy may flex over time as you work new things out. If you don't start with here's the pitch that we're going to play on, the game goes out of control. And
I think it's that exploratory. We're still a little bit in that exploratory period. When we came into 2025, I said, all right, 2024 was the time we learn what is AI, exploring the opportunities with it. And 2025 is the year to implement some of this stuff. And I genuinely think that has been the case, but we're still very much going through that. And like you say, you might go 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because you're adjusting the whole time. But I think, our customers are very much implementing stuff and learning through that implementation and then adjusting. You don't have to get everything perfect from your foundations to start with. Whatever you can, it's kind of the same as we said before. Getting your data in a good, credible state is important, and it becomes more and more and more important as we go forward.
And I suppose as well, and Pav, you might have a view on this with some of the conversations we have. That also means people's roles are changing, because the way that they're interacting with the data is different, and what they want to get out of it is potentially slightly different. So you then come back to kind of org design questions, and have we got a business model that is kind of fit for an AI-enabled world? And that's something that I don't think is fronted into enough as part of the planning process of, if we're going to use AI to remove menial tasks, well, why don't you just remove the menial tasks first and kind of shape the role so that they can use the data that they've got and the governance that they're putting in place? So I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I think the roles and responsibilities is is changing, and it will change, and it will ebb and flow over as AI becomes more and more embedded into systems within businesses. So if you look from a traditional developer background, a lot of developers are using things like Claude Code, Cursor, Gemini. So they're essentially inputting prompts in to then move their deployments across the SDLC. So what they're finding is, yes, it enhances their role, but they then become more of a quality engineer, if you will, and have an overview of quality, because they're still going to need to know the best practices and the ins and outs of their deployments, architecture, security controls. And again, having that human in the loop to look at what AI has done is paramount, because you can't, and that's one thing that people can't have the vision or view to do, just to let AI out to production systems or to customers, because you can have hallucinations, you can have, again, especially from the coding perspective, you can have security controls or flaws in there, then that can have detrimental effects to company's reputation and business. So that's from a kind of developer point of view as well. But again, in terms of non-developers and different roles within businesses, yes, it is gonna change. Learning and development practices and arms within businesses need to understand what those changes are for people, what training to actually provide and input for them to be productive, because again, you may save an admin guy or girl 20, 30, 40 minutes in a day. So how are we repurposing that 20, 30, 40 minutes? Is it okay, you can go on an extended lunch break? I mean, I don't think CEOs and heads of are going to be too happy about that. So again, can we identify something within a business that the role and responsibility can extend to? Is it a case that, yes, we're enhancing our employee, and then we, traditionally as a business, we outsource another process or task, but because of the productivity gains, can we now bring that in-house? And again, this kind of goes back to rolling all the way back as to what you said earlier, Paul, as the why. So why are we actually doing this? Why are we actually implementing AI within the business? Does it sit and align to our business strategy, our business goals? And again, further back through that is the why of how much does it affect our EBIT? So you've really got to start looking at the different layers to actually implementing AI. It's not as simple as, here's a tool, go away, here's the security controls. Yes, that's fine, that's needed, but you always need to look back and understand the why. And again, business is business at the end of the day. So EBIT and profitability is something that certainly boards and C-suites are going to be looking at. So we can repurpose people, their roles, their goals within a business, and give them slightly bigger remits, if you will. Then generally that's going to be better looked on within a business, and the profitability should follow suit as well.
So switching tack a little bit then. So the pace of innovation is, quite frankly, mind-boggling at the moment. I think every time I get an email from AI News, it has another 20 tools that you could buy. I think if you're worried about whether you've got a tool that can match a problem that you've got, if there isn't a tool, there'll be one within the next couple of weeks, because somebody somewhere is inventing something. But that speed of innovation, I think, is outpacing a business's ability to provide governance. How would you cover that, Mass? Because you have a fairly open organization in terms of the tools that they can use. How do you keep up with that level of governance when things are just moving so quickly?
And again, one thing about governance as well, it's not about compliance, really. It's about embedding responsible practices from the outset in the first place. And yes, innovation will always outpace responsibility in some cases and all of that, because that's pretty much the case with technology innovation. We've never seen this level of pace before, and we need to sort of get grip of this in itself as technology leaders or business leaders or both. Organization must really balance that with a little bit of structure. So in other words, resist sometimes the FOMO in itself. And how do you do that? Start governance early. That's my two things. Have some clear values. in which he would say, this is pretty much what we will inform all future adoption, whether it is in technology, whether it is in product, whether it is in customer service, whether it is in procurement and all that, with a set of defined values. And I talk about values, but what do I really mean by that? We are adopting 8 key values. One is obviously human rights and dignity, because, hey, if we know that this is something that is going to offend some level of human rights and dignity and all that, why is this a value that we really want to sort of uphold? Well, that's in the missions of our organization. And to be frank, I struggle to think of any other organization that shouldn't, unless they are malevolent or with bad intent. Fairness, inclusiveness, and bias mitigation is clearly something. Why is that? We're trying to protect also the sort of, not only the sort of legal risk, but also the reputational risk. And that's going back to business in itself. The third element is transparency and explainability in itself. How are we actually producing the kind of work, and how we want our collaborators and all that to sort of disclose pretty much how much AI usage is. Not only is good practice in itself, but it also serves you to mitigate the risk of copyright infringements and stuff for that, which is again sort of a risk mitigating factor. Accountability, responsibility, security and safety, accuracy and data quality is already there. We didn't need to have, you know, AI to sort of remind us how good data structure is key for, you know, sort of, you know, the AI transformation and the AI adoption journey. And of course, ongoing monitorability as well. This is kind of key. So to me, you know, the key element is start your governance, you know, as early as possible, trying to embed that. And the responsibility doesn't sit necessarily with one person. It's a shared model responsibility in itself. So by that, you can access pretty much, and you can assess also how the innovation is going to drive, you know, some discussions in your own organizations as well.
Well, it's at its core, what we're getting is an influx of productivity tool sets, which make it very personal and also make it about cultural change and cultural evolution. Where do you want to be on the scale of super entrepreneurial employees, teams that can go and experiment, but within the boundaries of your corporate rules or governance, and or do you not want to be that? But that's a cultural shift that you don't just do by, you know, writing some great words on the wall. It has to be embedded over time. James, I'd be interested in your opinion on that as well. Maybe as a business leader, as much as what you do in your conversations.
Well, I can't remember who was talking a few minutes ago, and it got me thinking about my wife's role. She's originally a journalist, now more of a copywriter for a large corporate. And she adopts AI really well. So, and what I mean by that, I guess, is she's using the tools out there to help research whatever she's writing about. Where, you know, if there's calls with stakeholders that she needs to do some thought leadership writing on, whatever it may be, she's using those tools in a sensible way. It just makes us more efficient, right? So going back to I think it was Pav saying a few minutes ago about the ROI on people's time, the efficiencies, all that kind of stuff. I think we can, when the internet was born and we could start doing more research, and we write in our, I don't know, maybe our degrees and things like that, and referencing where we found this information, we were still using tools to do that, which were way quicker and way more efficient than we could do before, right? And essentially, I think in her world, for sure, where she's doing copywriting, AI is very much helping us speed that process up, but it does not take that human out the loop of quality control, tone of voice, you know, making sure it's hitting the messages we want it to hit. But what it does do is bring a lot of that information, organize it and articulate it really well, and then you can tweak it. And there's stuff that we do. I mean, our team at Climber, as you'd hope, do adopt AI pretty well, I think, in some of the things we do, some of the blogs we write. You know, my marketing executive, she will write marketing emails, and she's saying, I can't get these words right. So she'll put it into an AI tool and it will come back with suggested alternatives. Well, I'd much rather she did that than spend 20 minutes scratching her head and playing around with the different words, you know. So I think, I mean, as you say, a business leader, I think we're doing a great job of adopting AI tools to make us more efficient, give us a wider grasp of information that we can distill down into something we want to share. But I think we do recognize the risks, and so we're not putting our P&L up into ChatGPT or any sensitive data into platforms like that. But yeah, so I think it's about rethinking those roles. I said a few minutes ago about we shouldn't be building dashboards, certainly not in a few years' time. We should be making sure the data is accurate. And so those that are building dashboards today, we're still going to need them, but their role is going to be less about what color are these charts and a little bit more, detailed in the data and the modeling and very much bringing unstructured data, as I said at the start, and structured data together. So where we had 20% of what was available to us in an organization is structured data for dashboards and insights and that kind of stuff previously, now we've got 100% of the data that an organization has access to, but that needs that governance and controls around what versions of those unstructured policies or procedures or contracts or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So we wanted to allow some time for questions from folks that are on the call, but just before we kind of move to that, a bit of kind of fun. Pav, if you were to look forward 3 years, let's say, the world has changed quite a lot from a technology perspective in the last 3 years. Where do you think it's going? What would you be saying when you're sat in front of kind of our customers describing what the art of the possible is? What's your kind of tip of the day, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, I think, well, if we're looking 3 to 5 years in the time, in the future, if we look back 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, right? So LLMs and Gen AI, the democratization wasn't as prolific as now. So taking that as a kind of a stepping stone to the future, I think what you probably can imagine AI can do, that will probably be the case in 3 to 5 years. Whether it does it successfully or correctly aligned to the security policies or governance frameworks within your business, that's a different question. But yeah, I think anything that you're imagining from a business perspective that AI can potentially do, or a tool will be out there or derived in the next 3 to 5 years, I think that will be the case. But a word of caution using those tools is you need to understand exactly what it does, how it plugs into your system, and then use them according to your internal AI postures, your internal security postures, because we don't want anything to leak out. And it's kind of funny, as you were saying, James, as you said, your wife's a journalist. I was reading a article on LinkedIn, I think it was yesterday, where there was a journalist for a newspaper, and they'd copied and pasted the prompt that they put into final edit. So using tools like that, you really need to have that quality overview and actually look at what you're doing, and not just say, yes, it's fine, and get it out there. I think that will, as AI becomes more ubiquitous within businesses, I think that will be the challenge, getting people to understand that, yes, it's there to enhance you. It's not going to do everything for you.
I think you make a good point there, Pav, on the prompting. Actually, I meant to say that the prompting is your new skill, right? The better the prompt, the more detailed the prompt, the more specifics you can ask AI when we're talking about Gen AI, then the better, and that's where you get the real value back.
Yeah, definitely. Understanding how to prompt correctly as well it's certainly going to be paramount now and moving forward. And again, but I think that will only take systems so far, because again, they can increase the context windows of your tokenization as much as they want. But if you're incorrectly prompting, or the system that you're using, or the AI tool that you're using doesn't have the knowledge associated with what you're trying to do, then you're always going to hit that brick wall, which is where I think humans themselves need to take that last bit on and really use their own initiatives and their own understandings of the modern world to enhance what AI is doing.
It's back to bad in, bad out. So get the adoption, the training correct at the up front, and then it should be easier. Go on, James.
Yeah.
Predict the future.
Oh, well, we've got machine learning tools to do that. So, yeah, I would hate to guess. I think we will all be more efficient. I think we've seen that over the last few years already, you know, in terms of getting more content out there. I think the interesting thing now is where we used to worry about SEO for our websites and finding new customers to find us. We were worried about our Google page rankings. We're now very much thinking about how do we architect our websites and the type of content on our website for AI to find us. So you get that we're a reference within an AI response. Do you know what struck me the other day? I was on a social weekend with some friends, and we were chatting, having this AI conversation, which I think many people do these days, right? And we were playing with some photos, and someone was turning them into cartoons. And then the other day, I received a WhatsApp from the same group. They turned it into this video where the 5 guys were running down the beach like some Enid Blyton kind of story. And I showed it to my kids, and they're like, "Yeah, that's AI." And what they're 9 and 11, and I think that's amazing. They can spot that it's AI straight away. I was like, "Oh my god, that's so realistic." So it worries me from where are we in 3 years' time in terms of how realistic is that, you know? But yeah, in terms of our world, I think it will just be speed of delivery. In terms of building dashboards is dead, but making sure that we've got robust data across an organization, from structured, unstructured, etc., and agents to really think about how it services the data. That's definitely going to be in the next 3 years, would be my prediction. But yeah, it'll be interesting yet scary. Yeah.
Absolutely. Matt, I'm going to ask you the question slightly differently. Trust, you have, and I always get the acronym wrong.
AI Company Data Initiative. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's a Company Data Initiative Index.
So you must see a lot of information going into that in terms of maturity, maybe 30 seconds on what that score is and how we relate it to this question of how have you seen that maturity changing over the last 12 months of kind of running that program, and then we'll ask some questions of the audience if they've got them.
Yeah, so this is one of the biggest index to date when it comes to the maturity and the scorecard, shall we say, of how businesses are adopting AI in a very kind of ethical and responsible manner. Ultimately, is a little bit of a is a survey on sort of driving your strategic adoptions and all that, and that's prompting quite a lot of companies to understand pretty much the strategic value, but also the impact on environment, on the human workforce, and various other elements and all of that. And there's momentum in understanding pretty much that there isn't one adoption strategy that fits all, but that governance actually is a very core key on that. And if I may sort of go back to part of why we're also doing that, obviously UNESCO, and had launched responsible and ethical AI usage in 2023, but obviously in terms of reaching businesses and promoting responsible business practices, you needed to have something which is a little bit easier to, in a way, to sort of work with. And a survey such as this is effectively your maturity scorecard in itself. It tells you something that you didn't even know until you were prompted to sort of respond to certain type of questions. But if I may sort of look a little bit into kind of the future, which I'm kind of excited about, I think there will be way more redefinition of what the human workforce is and what this stands for and all that, because surely once you ingest quite a lot of agentic AI adoption tooling, generative AI, whatever you want to call it in your own business and all that, you will have to understand pretty much what do we do with our human workforce and how do we actually orchestrate a workforce that is one side is automation, AI, and agentic versus human workforce in itself. And also, let's not fall into the honey traps in a way. Some of the AI tools that I see around there are so seductive. They really want to please you. They really would love to sort of give you the best position ever and all that, and give you a sense of real good value and all of that. Is it really, though, the case sometimes? Is it like a very nice honey trap that I'm falling into that? And how do you skill your human workforce not to fall for these honey traps at all different levels, C-suite level versus pretty much all the sort of working groups that you have in there?
It's a fantastic segue as to why we introduced May and why our framework exists. So we won't do the sales pitch here, though. Right, thank you, gents. We have a question from Summit in the chat there. Metacognitive laziness is on the rise. Dependency on systems and tools is taken away from people's ability to make decisions. How do we combat that? And Mass, you were kind of alluding to that a moment ago.
Look, I understand pretty much that, and it's certainly not just because of AI in itself. It's a generic thing that started, I would say, with digital in a way. I mean, you know, how many phone numbers do you actually remember now?
Yeah.
Versus 30 years ago, where basically you did not have the same sort of space and all of that. So, yes, I mean, technology is doing certain type of activities. However, on the kind of positive side, it's forcing us to think in a different way. So who are best, you know, kind of to rethinking pretty much how we're going to have a different language altogether? Well, philosophers. There's nothing to do with technology whatsoever. And, you know, the clue is in the word artificial intelligence. Forget the artificial for a minute. What is intelligence? What is logos, as they call it in Greek, and that sort of thing? So I think there is a cue there. How are you going to do prompt literacy and prompt engineering if your syntax in your head is not right?
Yep.
There is no machine that will take you that. And this is pretty much in this box that we have on our heads.
Absolutely. Great answer. Right. We have hit the 45-minute mark. Massimo, James, Pav, I want to thank you very much for joining us for the conversation. For those that have logged on, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate taking time out of your morning. I hope your 11sies and cup of tea or coffee was consumed well. We will be packaging this up and sending it out, so with the notes and links to the various things that were mentioned. And if you want to get in touch to discuss your AI strategy, please do let us know. And thank you very much again.